there is just something different right now going on in Oxford, Mississippi. And Lane Kiffin has got Ole Miss, I think, going in the right direction. And it's something I think college football fans need to be paying attention to. And listen, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're like, well, hey, you, Preston, you talk a lot about Oklahoma football on the show. Why are we talking Lane Kiffin? Well, here's the deal. We need to start familiarizing ourselves with the SEC because Oklahoma is going to have to step into these stomping grounds and play these teams. And I think when you look at what Ole Miss is doing on the recruiting trail and what Lane Kiffin is doing at Ole Miss kind of could be a problem for Oklahoma. And when you look at Lane Kiffin's resume while he's been at Ole Miss, 23-13 in just 3 seasons means Lane Kiffin's heading into season number 4. 2020 wasn't the best year. You look at the on-field production, 5-5, although they beat number 11 Indiana in their bowl game, in the Outback Bowl, for that matter. In 2021, you see Ole Miss bounce back and go 10-3. A lot of hype, a lot of excitement about the program. Your only losses that season were to, well, ironically, number 1 Alabama, number 18 Auburn, but you beat number 13 Arkansas, number 11 Texas A&M. So you look at it and go, well, Lane Kiffin's able to beat high-profile teams, but, well, he has that one sword that everybody else has, and it's called Nick Saban. And then you get to 2022, and you start to see a little bit of a fall off here from the previous year. They go out, they start the season 7-0. They lose to LSU 45-20. A really talented LSU team, an LSU team that I think is going to go on to compete for the SEC West once again because, well, they got a big bad man in Harold Perkins on that defense that is going to help anchor it and stabilize it, especially as Brian Kelly goes into his second year where you expect the offense will be clicking a little better with Jaden Daniels. But we'll get into that preview a little bit later with LSU. They beat Texas A&M, not by a hefty margin, 31-28, but it's a win, right? So 8-1. LSU probably at this point, or Ole Miss at this point, y'all are looking at 10-11 wins. That's what you guys have in your sights. You lose to Alabama 30-24. Honestly, not bad. You lose by 6 points. You show that you're able to hang in there with the best of them. You're hoping here in the next couple of years you're able to turn the tide and beat Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide. But you lose to Arkansas, an Arkansas team that, I mean, they were not that good last year. 42-27. And then you lost in the Egg Bowl to Mississippi State 24-22. And then you go to play Texas Tech, who, if you guys have watched the show, you guys know I'm high on what Joey McGuire is doing down there in Lubbock. But they lose 42-25. And so you ultimately end up with a 8-5 record. And Jackson Dart's best game came against Vanderbilt, second best game against Texas Tech. And you might be asking, so what's going to happen with Ole Miss in 2023? Because Ole Miss has got to play Mercer, at Tulane, Georgia Tech, at Alabama, LSU, Arkansas, at Auburn, Vanderbilt, versus Texas A&M, at number 1 Georgia, UL Monroe, and then at Mississippi State. And I look at it and go, honestly, Ole Miss could be on the track again for anywhere between 9 to 10 wins again. So you see Lane Kiffin stepping up. And this is where we kind of get into the recruiting trail aspect, because they got a commitment the other day from the 5-star defensive lineman, Kamorian Franklin, the number 6th overall defensive lineman in this class, number 30 overall player. And Ole Miss, this is not the first time that they've landed a 5-star or a 5-star player out of the state of Mississippi. Last cycle, in 2023, they were able to get Cetrarian Perkins, the 5-star athlete, probably could play a little bit of linebacker, number 3 overall at his position, 6'3", 205 pounds. That's who they got. And so you deep dive a little bit more into the 2024 cycle. Well, Ole Miss has locked down 3 out of the top 4 defensive linemen in their state. Mind you, 3 out of the top 4 players in their state. The number 1 player, Jamonte Waller, a 5-star edge rusher, currently committed to Florida, We'll see if Lane Kiffin can potentially try to go in there and pull off the flip from Billy Napier, depending on what kind of season Billy Napier has. But you look at this class, and this is what intrigues me for Ole Miss, because it's not like they're knocking your socks off on the recruiting trail. You go and you look at what they're doing on the recruiting trail, and, well, they're only, when you look at the SEC rankings, number 12. They are literally 4 spots away from being at the bottom. And, well, teams above them, teams you would expect: Florida, Georgia, Bama, A&M, LSU, Tennessee, Auburn, Oklahoma, Texas, South Carolina, Arkansas. But I look at what they did in 2024, and I'm going to keep tracking back to this. So far, 3 of the top 10 players out of the state of Mississippi are committed to Ole Miss. You might be asking, well, why is this significant? In 2018 and 2019, years before Lane Kiffin got there, they were only able to land 2 guys in the top 10 each year. So 1 in 2018, 1 in 2019. And the top 10 players in Mississippi. In 2020, as soon as Lane Kiffin comes in, he gets 2. In 2021, he gets 3. 2022, he gets 2. In 2023, he got 2, but he got 1 as a 5-star, and that's not something they've done previously. And then in 2024, he's got 3 so far. And he's trending towards number 4 in terms of Norwell White. And so I look at what potential season Lane Kiffin could have on the recruiting trail and what he could do on the football field. Because I look at the schedule and I go, it's pretty favorable for Ole Miss. They're going to beat Mercer. They should beat Tulane. I mean, Tulane's a very good team, but they should beat Tulane. It's going to be on ESPN2, 2:30. There'll be a lot of people tuning in there. You're going to beat Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's just a bad team in general. But you're going to probably lose to Bama, depending on how Bama looks. So I've got Ole Miss starting the season 3-1. Now, they're probably going to drop the next game to currently ranked number 5 LSU. Like I said, I just think LSU is a really good team this year. But they could go on a streak of wins. You've got Arkansas at home. You've got to go at Auburn. I think you can win at Auburn. Versus Vandy. Vandy's on the rise, but they ain't on this big of a rise yet. They ain't beating Lane Kiffin. So right there, you got 6 wins. So the question is, are you going to be able to beat Texas A&M? A Texas A&M team that has a very good defense, but we've known Ole Miss to have an explosive offense. You don't have that explosive quarterback that you had, but you still got Jackson Dart and you still got Spencer Sanders. You just don't have Matt Corral, right? Okay. So let's say you beat A&M. That gives you 7. You're going to lose to Georgia. I just don't see beating Georgia. Then you've got UL Monroe. That should be a W. That gives you 8 right there. And at Mississippi State, that's 9. 9 wins. 9 wins on your schedule, I can say confidently Ole Miss gets those. The question marks on your schedule to get to 10 is going to be at Alabama. Tough place to win. Hard to win in Tuscaloosa. However, doesn't look like Alabama has their quarterback situation figured out, and you're going to be playing them early in the season. Now, the only thing that sucks is you might be playing them right after they lose to Texas. So Alabama might be on a vengeance to get that win, because we know Nick Saban ain't in the business of losing 2 games in a row. But even at 9 wins, in what Lane Kiffin has done in the state of Mississippi on the recruiting trail, you could imagine that in 2025, Lane Kiffin could start to really shake up the SEC and not only go out there and try to land 5 stars in his state because, well, they've got a 5-star wide receiver in Caleb Cunningham, and then they've got a top 150 corner in the state, Cortez Thomas. I mean, I look at it, they got 8 guys ranked in the top 250. But they might try to go out there and get some other 5 stars from other states. They might start trying to dip into Alabama and Georgia and Florida and really gain some elite talent. And Lane Kiffin has already proven that he could be a problem in the SEC for a lot of coaches. I mean, 23-13 in 3 seasons in the SEC, that's not bad if I do say so myself. Obviously, that 2020 COVID year was a little weird, so maybe his record could have been a little bit better, but we're just going to say it. 23-13. Lane Kiffin Still a problem for a lot of SEC coaches. It's going to be a problem on the recruiting trail. In 2025, where Mississippi State has really, I think, been dominating the state of Mississippi when it comes to those two schools. And then you've got Alabama and the Floridas and the Georgias and all these other SEC schools reaching in. Maybe Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss could kind of put that priority like my Oklahoma Sooners and Brent Venables are doing and saying, hey, we're going to lock down our state. Maybe Lane Kiffin can do it. Another good season behind and under his belt. You start to sway some of these kids and say, hey, come be a part of what we're building in Ole Miss. Come be a part of it. Come be a part of something special. Maybe we can start to compete for SEC championships. Maybe with the college football playoffs expanding, you can stay home but still have a chance to compete for the SEC, well, for a college football playoff. Not to mention, as we just saw with Missouri landing the number one defensive lineman in the country and the number one player in the country in Williams Nwaneri, NIL, especially for in-state schools, when you've got an in-state player, it might start being a factor. It might start creating a little bit more parity, making kids think twice about leaving their state. Because as I've said with a 5-star defensive lineman that Oklahoma is going after, it's originally from Oklahoma, but it's playing in Florida. The NIL deals in your state, if you're from there, are a little bit more plentiful. They're a little bit longer lasting. And if Ole Miss can figure it out, Ole Miss, I mean, is it dare to say they're in the middle of the road talent state? It's not that they have this just great, extraordinary 5-star talent every single year in the state, but they have quite a few blue chippers in the state. And if Ole Miss can go in there and lock 60 to 70% of those blue chippers down, you might have to watch out for the product and what Ole Miss could be doing on the field in general. So, guys, I want to hear from you. Go ahead, jump down in the comments below, and let me know what y'all's thoughts are, because Lane Kiffin, he's on fire, and he's not slowing down, or at least it doesn't have any indication that he's slowing down. If you have not already, go ahead and hit that like and hit the subscribe button. Jump down in the comments below and let me know what y'all's thoughts are.